Most people spend years feeling stressed, tired, and mentally drained because they keep reacting to life instead of learning how to handle it. They get pulled by other people, by pressure, by bad habits, and by emotions that change too fast. But real strength starts when you stop living that way. It starts when you learn how to stay calm when life gets hard, how to think clearly when things go wrong, and how to keep moving even when nobody is cheering for you. In this audiobook, you are going to hear 8 brutal Stoic laws that can change the way you think and live every day. These are not soft ideas, and they are not empty inspiration. They are practical rules for becoming stronger inside. You will learn how to accept what you cannot control, how to discipline your reactions, how to face discomfort early, and how to stop giving your power away to approval excuses and weak habits. You will also learn how to protect your peace and build the kind of mind that does not break easily. Stay with this all the way through, because each law builds on the next. By the end, you will have a clearer way to think and a stronger way to live. Chapter 1. Accept what you cannot control and stay calm. Most people spend a large part of their day trying to control things that will never obey them. They try to control what other people think. They try to control how fast life moves. They try to control the past after it is already gone. They try to control a bad mood with more worry. They try to control bad news by thinking about it again and again. And every time they do that, they lose energy they could have used to build a stronger mind. This is where the first Stoic law begins. Accept what you cannot control and stay calm. This is not a weak idea. It is not giving up. It is not pretending that pain does not exist. It is not telling yourself that problems do not matter. It is a much harder thing than that. It is the practice of stand still inside yourself while life keeps moving. It is the discipline of learning where your power ends and where your responsibility begins. It is the choice to stop fighting the wrong battle. A calm mind is not a mind that has no problems. A calm mind is a mind that knows where to place its attention. That one lesson can change your life. Think about how much stress comes from simple resistance. A person wakes up late and spends the next hour angry about the alarm. The train is delayed and the whole day feels ruined. A family member says something careless and the words replay in the mind all afternoon. A message is not answered. A plan changes. A job interview does not go well. A bill arrives. A friend drifts away. None of these things feel small when they happen. But the real damage often comes later from the mental fight against reality. The pain starts with the event and grows through resistance. Stoic thought teaches something clear and useful. There are things you control and things you do not. You control your choices, you control your effort, you control your words. You control whether you respond with dignity or with panic. You do not control the weather. You do not control every reaction from other people. You do not control the full shape of the future. You do not control the past. You do not control every outcome even when you work hard. That may sound simple, but simple ideas become powerful only when practiced under pressure. A person becomes mentally unbreakable by learning to separate facts from frustration. A fact is what happened. Frustration is what you add to it. A fact may be that someone was rude. Frustration says they must respect you or your day is ruined. A fact may be that a goal is taking longer than expected. Frustration says it should have happened already. A fact may be that life is uncertain. Frustration says uncertainty is unfair and intolerable. Stoic calm begins when you stop treating every uncomfortable fact like a personal attack. There is great freedom in this. When you stop demanding that life match your preferences, at every moment you become lighter. Not because life gets easier, it does not, but because your mind wastes less time arguing with what is already true. Start with this question each morning. What is mine to control today? Not what is easy to control, not what is pleasant to control. What is mine to control? Your attention, your effort, your tone, your discipline, your next right decision, your honesty, your patience, your willingness to stay steady. When you begin the day with that question, you stop looking outward for rescue and start looking inward for direction. That does not mean you become cold. It means you become clear. A calm person still feels disappointment. A calm person still feels fear. A calm person still gets tired. But they do not hand over the steering wheel to every feeling. They notice the feeling. They name it. Then they decide what matters more. This is strength. Not the absence of emotion, but the ability to guide emotion instead of being dragged by it. One of the most practical habits you can build is the habit of the pause. When something upsetting happens, do not rush to react. Pause for one breath, then another. In that small gap, ask yourself 2 questions. Is this within my control? What response will help me most? That pause may be only a few seconds, but it can protect you from words you will regret and decisions you will need to fix later. A calm response often begins in the body before it begins in the mind. Relax your shoulders, release your jaw, put both feet on the ground, slow your breathing. These are not small details. They are signals to your nervous system that you are safe enough to think clearly. When the body calms down, the mind becomes more useful. You do not have to be perfect at this. You only need to practice it often enough that it becomes natural. Think of the last time you were upset and said something you did not mean. Chances are the problem was not only the event, it was the speed of your reaction. A Stoic approach teaches patience with yourself in the moment. You do not need to respond to everything immediately. In fact, the strongest response is often a delayed one. A calm person can wait. A reactive person cannot. Life will keep presenting things that you would rather not face. Someone may lie, someone may leave, a project may fail, a plan may fall apart, a body may get tired, a season may feel lonely. None of that means you are powerless. It means your power must be used where it actually matters. You cannot command every event. You can command your conduct. That is where character is built. Not when life is smooth, not when everything goes your way. Character is built when life refuses to cooperate and you still refuse to abandon your standards. There is a quiet kind of courage in accepting reality without surrendering your effort. If you get turned down for a job, you do not own the decision, but you do own your next step. You can improve your skills, you can apply again, you can ask for feedback, you can keep moving. If someone misunderstands you, you may not be able to force them to change their mind, but you can stay honest, you can stay respectful, you can avoid begging for approval. If a situation becomes difficult, you may not be able to change every detail, but you can choose not to collapse inside it. This mindset is powerful because it cuts through drama. It keeps your energy from being scattered. It helps you stay useful when others are panicking. In hard moments, people do not only need answers, they need steadiness. They need someone who can think clearly. They need someone who can stay present. That person can become you. There is also deep peace in accepting that uncertainty is part of life. Many people suffer because they want guarantees before they move. They want the relationship to be certain before they trust. They want success to be certain before they begin. They want health to be certain before they take care of it. They want the future to be certain before they act. But certainty is not available in the way they want. Waiting for it only delays growth. Stoic calm says, move with wisdom even when the future is unclear. Prepare as well as you can, then release the need to know everything. You do not need full control to make good decisions. You only need enough clarity for the next step. This is one reason journaling can be such a strong tool. At the end of the day, write down what happened. Then, write down what was in your control and what was not. This simple practice trains your mind to stop mixing the two. Over time, you begin to see patterns. You notice how much of your stress came from things you could not change. You notice how often your suffering grew because you argued with reality. You begin to correct yourself. This is how wisdom becomes practical. Another helpful exercise is to imagine worst case and best case without panic. Not to frighten yourself, to prepare yourself. Ask, what is the most likely outcome? What can I do now? What can I do later? What can I stop doing because it adds no value? This kind of thinking reduces fear, because fear often grows in vague darkness. When you name the situation clearly, it becomes easier to handle. Many people believe calmness is a personality trait. It is not. It is a trained response. A person can learn it. A person can strengthen it. A person can become better at it through repetition. That is good news, because it means your peace does not depend on luck. It depends on practice. Begin with small things. The line at the store is long. Do not feed irritation. The driver is slow. Do not waste anger. The computer freezes. Do not start a war inside yourself. These tiny moments are training grounds. If you can stay composed in small annoyances, you will be far stronger when larger problems arrive. A calm mind is built in ordinary hours. It helps to remember that your first thought is not always your chosen thought. The first thought may be fear. It may be anger. It may be disappointment. That is normal. The power is in the second thought. The second thought is where wisdom enters. The second thought asks what is true. The second thought asks what matters. The second thought refuses to make a bad moment worse. You can also protect your calm by limiting unnecessary input. Too much noise makes it harder to think. Too many arguments make it harder to stay grounded. Too much comparison makes it harder to appreciate your own path. If you keep feeding your mind with constant drama, then calm will always feel difficult. Choose carefully what you read, what you watch, and who you spend time with. This is not escape. This is discipline. A peaceful mind is not one that knows nothing about the world. It is one that does not let the world take over its inner life. When you practice acceptance, you begin to notice something else. You become more effective. This may seem strange at first. People often think worry helps them prepare. It does not. It drains focus. Acceptance does the opposite. It removes wasted resistance so your energy can go toward action. The moment you stop fighting what is beyond your reach, you reclaim your strength for what is within it. That is why calm people often solve problems faster. They are not carrying extra emotional weight while they work. This law also changes how you deal with other people. You stop needing them to be different before you can be peaceful. You stop trying to control their moods and choices. You stop expecting them to read your mind. You stop treating every difference as a personal offense. You begin to understand that each person is living inside their own story. You can influence, you can guide, you can help, but you cannot force inner change. Once you accept that truth, you become more patient and less disappointed. This does not mean you allow mistreatment. Acceptance is not passivity. You can accept reality and still set limits. You can accept that someone is acting badly and still decide not to stay close to them. You can accept that a relationship has changed and still move forward with dignity. You can accept a hard truth and still choose a stronger path. That is mature strength. A calm person knows when to speak and when to stay quiet. They do not rush to fill every silence. They do not need to win every debate. They do not need the last word to prove their worth. They understand that silence can be wiser than reaction. Many conflicts grow because people feel they must answer right away. They feel insulted by delay. They feel weak if they do not respond instantly. But maturity often looks like restraint. It looks like knowing that not every comment deserves your energy. If you want to live this law in a real way, start by using one daily reminder. When something goes wrong, say to yourself, "This is happening and I will handle what I can." That sentence may sound plain. That is the point. It brings you back to reality. It stops the spiral. It helps you move from emotional chaos to practical thinking. Then make a list in your mind or in writing. What is the problem? What is inside my control? What is not? What is the next step? This structure gives your mind a place to stand. It keeps you from drowning in the whole situation at once. One step at a time is not a weak method. It is the only method that works when pressure is high. You will notice that this way of living builds trust in yourself. Every time you stay calm instead of falling apart, you prove to your own mind that you can be steady. That proof matters. Confidence is not built by repeating nice words to yourself. It is built by seeing yourself act well under strain. The more you do that, the more your identity changes. You start to believe in your own strength because you have evidence of it. And yes, there will still be days when you fail. Days when you react too fast. Days when you lose your patience. Days when you feel overwhelmed. Do not turn one bad moment into a new identity. Stoic strength is not about never slipping. It is about correcting course quickly, learn, reset, keep going. Self-command grows through return, not perfection. A life guided by this law becomes simpler. Not easy, but simpler. You stop spending so much time on complaints that change nothing. You stop giving power to every passing mood. You stop treating every obstacle as a disaster. You begin to see problems as things to work through rather than things to fear. That shift changes your energy. It changes your posture. It changes the way others feel around you. People sense calm. It makes them trust you more. The deeper lesson here is that peace is not found after control. Peace is found after surrendering the need for control where it does not belong. You do your part and you release the rest. You act with care and then accept the outcome. You make the call and then live with the result. You learn to respect limits without feeling defeated by them. That is a mind that cannot be easily broken. When life gets loud, return to this simple truth. Some things are yours to shape and some things are not. Do not waste your strength on what is outside your reach. Put it into your thoughts, your actions, your discipline, and your character. That is where your life changes. Stay calm, not because life is gentle, but because you are becoming stronger than your fear. Stay calm, not because nothing hurts, but because you refuse to let pain lead every decision. Stay calm because your mind deserves training. Stay calm because your future depends on the person you are becoming today. Stay calm because accepting what you cannot control is one of the clearest signs that you are learning to master yourself. Every day will give you a chance to practice this law. A delay, a mistake, a rude word, a sudden change, a hard truth, a decision you cannot reverse. Each one is a test. Each one is also a chance to grow. The world may continue to offer pressure. Your task is to become a person who does not break under pressure. Not by pretending nothing matters. By knowing what truly does. That is how a strong life begins. Not with control over everything. With calm strength over yourself. Chapter 2. Discipline your reactions before they control your choices. Most people think their life changes when their circumstances change. But a stronger truth sits underneath that. Life changes when their reactions change. The moment between an event and your response is where character is built. That moment is small, but it decides a great deal. A sharp word from someone, a delay, a mistake, a setback, a sudden disappointment. These things do not have to define your next move. The reaction you choose can. This is why the second Stoic law matters so much. Discipline your reactions before they control your choices. A reaction is fast. It comes before thought when emotions are strong. It can feel powerful because it arrives with heat. But power is not the same as wisdom. A fast reaction may give a feeling of release, but it often steals something far more valuable. It can cost you peace. It can damage trust. It can destroy focus. It can turn a small problem into a bigger one. Many people do not lose their future in one huge mistake. They lose it in repeated emotional responses they never learned to manage. If a person insults you and you instantly strike back with words, you may feel strong for 10 seconds and regret it for 10 days. If a plan fails and you immediately call yourself a failure, you may feel honest, but you are only feeding your fear. If someone disappoints you and you respond with silence, cruelty, or shutdown, you may think you are protecting yourself, but often you are just letting the reaction speak for you. A disciplined person does not ignore emotion. They notice it. They feel it. They respect it enough to not let it run the whole house. That difference matters. Emotion can be useful when it is observed. It becomes dangerous when it takes control. The first step is to slow the moment down. Most poor choices happen because people move too quickly. They reply too soon. They decide too soon. They assume too soon. They act before they understand what is happening. A disciplined response begins with a pause. Even a brief pause creates space. In that space, the mind can come back online. The body can settle. The worst version of you loses its chance to lead. You may not always control the first feeling that rises in you, but you can always influence what happens next. That is where freedom lives. If anger appears, you do not need to become anger. If fear appears, you do not need to obey it. If embarrassment appears, you do not need to make a scene. You can feel the pressure without becoming its servant. One of the most practical habits for this law is to ask one clear question before reacting. What will this choice create? Not what does my pride want right now? Not what feels satisfying right now. What will this choice create tomorrow? Will it create respect or regret? Will it create clarity or confusion? Will it create peace or more conflict? That question pulls you out of the heat of the moment and into the consequences that matter. There is also strength in understanding your personal triggers. Some people react strongly to criticism. Others react to being ignored. Some react to disrespect. Some react when plans change. Some react when they feel unseen. If you know what sets off your emotions, you can prepare for those moments instead of being shocked by them every time. Self-knowledge is not weakness, it is discipline. The better you know your patterns, the more power you have to interrupt them. A person who never studies their reactions keeps repeating the same pain. They call it bad luck. Often it is untrained behavior. They blame other people for the damage, but the real problem is that they have no system for managing the storm inside them. Once you become honest about your patterns, growth becomes possible. You stop saying, "That is just how I am," and start saying, "That is what I need to work on." That shift changes everything. You can practice this law in ordinary moments. When someone cuts in line, when a message comes in late, when a meeting does not go as planned, when a family member says something careless, notice what rises in you. Then choose your response with care. Not every reaction deserves expression. Not every thought deserves a voice. Not every feeling deserves action. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is remain steady and respond with calm facts instead of emotional force. This does not mean you become passive or weak. A disciplined reaction still allows you to speak clearly, set limits, and defend what matters. The difference is that your response comes from choice, not from impulse. You are not acting just because your feelings are loud. You are acting because your values are clear. That is a much stronger place to live from. Think about the people who are hardest to trust. Often it is not because they make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. It is because they react without control. One moment they are kind, the next they are harsh. One moment they are calm, the next they are explosive. People around them never know what version will appear. That instability creates distance. It makes others careful, it makes relationships tense. But a person who learns to govern reactions becomes easier to trust because their behavior is not ruled by every passing mood. This training begins in small places. When you feel the urge to answer with sarcasm, hold back. When you feel the urge to rush into a decision because you are scared, wait. When you feel the urge to blame someone immediately, first ask what part of this is yours to handle. When you feel the urge to quit because the work is uncomfortable, breathe and continue for 10 more minutes. Each time you do this, you strengthen the muscle of self-control. There is a hidden cost to emotional impulsiveness. It makes life exhausting. Every event becomes an emergency. Every discomfort becomes a crisis. Every disagreement becomes a battle. That kind of life drains the mind. It leaves a person tired before the day is even half over. Discipline, by contrast, brings relief. Not the fake relief of avoiding pain, but the real relief of no longer being owned by every reaction. A strong mind knows how to delay the emotional answer until the thoughtful answer is ready. This is useful in arguments, work, family life, and private moments when no one else sees you. It is useful when you are insulted and want to strike back. It is useful when shame appears and tells you to hide. It is useful when frustration rises and tells you to break what you have built. The disciplined person says, "Not now. First I will think." That sentence can save a relationship. It can save a career. It can save self-respect. If you want to apply this deeply, begin noticing the shape of your reactions. Some people tighten their chest. Some talk too fast. Some go quiet. Some become defensive. Some joke to avoid feeling too much. Some over-explain. Some shut down completely. These are clues. They show where your mind needs training. Do not treat them as personal shame. Treat them as information. Information helps you improve. Denial keeps you trapped. When a reaction starts rising, anchor yourself in something simple. Relax your hands. Lower your shoulders. Look at what is actually in front of you. Name the situation clearly in your mind. This is a disagreement. This is disappointment. This is pressure. This is not the end of my control. This small act of naming gives your mind structure. Structure is the enemy of panic. Another powerful habit is to replace immediate reaction with deliberate response. A reaction says whatever appears first. A response chooses what serves the future best. That single difference can change the direction of your life. People who master this do not become numb. They become reliable. They do not stop feeling. They stop being ruled. That is a deeper kind of strength. Over time, you'll notice a beautiful result. Your life becomes less crowded by regret. You stop needing to apologize for every emotional wave. You stop cleaning up the damage from words said too fast. You stop losing energy to unnecessary conflict. More of your strength stays where it belongs, on your work, on your health, on your purpose, on your peace. The world will always give you reasons to react. That will never change. But your task is to become a person who does not hand over the steering wheel. Every time something uncomfortable happens, you can feel without falling apart. You can be affected without becoming careless. You can be tested without becoming uncontrolled. That is mental strength in its purest form. Every day gives you chances to practice. In traffic, in conversation, in silence, in delay, in pressure, in disappointment, in private thought. Each moment asks the same question. Will your reaction lead you or will you lead it? The more often you choose discipline, the more natural it becomes. At first it feels difficult, later it feels normal, then it becomes part of who you are. A person who masters reactions becomes harder to break because they no longer hand their life over to the first impulse. They think, they breathe, they choose, they act with purpose. That is how inner strength grows. Not by pretending life is easy, by learning to remain steady when it is not. Chapter 3. Strengthen your mind through daily hard, honest reflection. Most people want a stronger mind, but avoid the very thing that builds it. They want confidence without correction. They want discipline without examination. They want growth without looking closely at their own behavior. Yet the mind does not become strong by accident. It becomes strong when a person is brave enough to look at their life honestly and keep learning from what they see. This is why daily reflection matters so much. Not casual thinking, not vague remembering. Honest reflection. The kind that asks difficult questions and accepts uncomfortable answers. The kind that does not protect pride at the cost of progress. The kind that helps you see yourself clearly enough to change. A weak mind hides from truth. A strong mind studies it. At the end of the day, many people distract themselves because silence feels too revealing. They scroll, watch, talk, eat, or fill the room with noise because they do not want to sit alone with their choices. But that quiet moment is not your enemy. It is your mirror. In that stillness, you can see what helped you and what hurt you. You can see where you were patient and where you were careless. You can see where your habits supported your future and where they pulled you away from it. Redemption is not about punishment. It is about accuracy. It is the simple discipline of asking what happened and what it means. Did I speak with respect? Did I waste time on things that do not matter? Did I avoid a hard task because I felt uncomfortable? Did I act from my values or from my mood? Did I improve even a little today? These are powerful questions because they move you from blind routine to conscious living. When you reflect daily, you begin to notice patterns. You notice that certain people drain your focus. You notice that certain times of day are more dangerous for your discipline. You notice which habits make you calmer and which ones make you restless. You notice where you lie to yourself and where you tell the truth. This kind of awareness is uncomfortable at first, but it is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. What you can see, you can change. One of the most useful habits is to spend a few minutes each night reviewing the day in complete honesty. Not to shame yourself, not to excuse yourself, to learn. Ask what you did well, ask what you avoided, ask where you lost time, ask what emotion controlled you, ask what lesson the day gave you, then answer plainly. No drama, no self-pity, no fake confidence, just truth. A person who reflects with honesty becomes harder to deceive, first by others and then by their own mind. That matters because self-deception is one of the biggest barriers to growth. A person may tell themselves they are busy when they are actually unfocused. They may say they are tired when they are actually avoiding effort. They may say they are fine when they are carrying unresolved anger. Honest reflection clears away those excuses. It reveals what is real. That does not mean the truth is always pleasant. Sometimes reflection will show you that your standards were lower than you thought. Sometimes it will show you that your discipline was weaker than your image. Sometimes it will show you that you need to apologize, repair, restart, or simplify. But this is not failure. This is the beginning of real strength. A person cannot improve a problem they refuse to see. You do not need a long ritual to make this work. You need consistency. A small notebook can become a powerful tool. Write the date. Write one thing you handled well. Write one thing you need to correct. Write one decision for tomorrow. This simple habit can sharpen your mind because it turns vague regret into useful direction. It helps you stop carrying the whole day as a blur. Instead, you extract wisdom from it. It also helps to reflect in the morning. Before the day starts, ask what kind of person you want to be today, not what you want to get. What kind of person you want to be. Calm, focused, honest, patient, brave, prepared. This gives your mind a clear target before the pressure begins. A morning check-in and an evening review can work together like bookends around your day, keeping you aligned with who you want to become. Honest reflection is especially important when life is moving fast. Fast living can make a person shallow without them noticing. They react more than they think. They consume more than they create. They stay busy but remain unchanged. Reflection interrupts that pattern. It slows the mind enough to ask whether your movement has direction. It brings depth back into your life. Sometimes the hardest part of reflection is admitting that the problem is not always outside you. It is easy to blame timing, people, luck, or circumstances. Those things matter. But if you are serious about growth, you must also ask what part of this you created, allowed, or repeated. That question is not meant to crush you. It is meant to return your power. If some of the problem is yours, then some of the solution is yours too. That is a liberating truth. A person who reflects often starts to build better judgment. They do not just repeat past mistakes with new excuses. They begin to recognize warning signs earlier. They catch themselves before they go too far. They stop trusting every urge. They become wiser because they are paying attention. Wisdom is not magic. It is memory guided by honesty. There is also a healing quality in reflection when it is done with fairness. Fairness means you do not exaggerate your flaws, and you do not hide them either. You see both your strength and your weakness. You notice where you showed courage. You also notice where you were careless. You give yourself credit when it is earned. You correct yourself where correction is needed. This balance matters because harsh self-judgment can be as unhelpful as blind denial. The goal is truth that improves you. A strong mind is not built by pretending to be perfect. It is built by becoming teachable. Reflection keeps you teachable. It reminds you that every day is a lesson, and every mistake can become a source of clarity if you are willing to learn from it. The question is not whether you will fail sometimes. You will. The question is whether you will learn quickly enough to turn the failure into growth. When you reflect regularly, you also become more grateful. Not in a forced way, in a real way. You begin to notice what worked. You notice the small victories that usually get ignored. You notice the effort it took to stay calm in one difficult moment, or to finish one hard task, or to tell the truth when it would have been easier to hide. Reflection helps you see progress clearly. And when progress becomes visible, hope becomes stronger. That is important because people often quit when they cannot see improvement. They think nothing is changing because they are looking only at what is still unfinished. Reflection corrects that mistake. It shows the distance you have already covered. It gives you evidence that effort matters. That evidence can carry you through difficult seasons. You can deepen this habit by asking one final question each day. If today were repeated tomorrow, what would I do differently? This question is powerful because it turns experience into future action. It does not let the day end as a random collection of events. It forces the mind to extract meaning. It turns living into learning. Over time, this practice changes your character. You become more deliberate, more honest, more grounded. You stop living on autopilot. You stop waiting for insight to fall into your lap. You begin to create insight by paying attention. This is how a strong mind is formed, not by endless entertainment, not by empty motivation, by daily examination and sincere correction. A person who faces themselves honestly becomes calmer because they are no longer avoiding their own truth. They become steadier because they know what weakens them. They become wiser because they learn from each day instead of just surviving it. They become stronger because they are no longer afraid to look inward. So take the time. Sit with your day. Study your actions. Learn from your emotions. Notice your habits. Tell yourself the truth with respect and firmness. This is not small work. This is the work that shapes a life. A mind strengthened by honest reflection does not drift easily. It knows where it stands. It knows where it has fallen. It knows where it is going next. And that kind of clarity is one of the strongest foundations a human being can build. Chapter 4. Detach from approval and trust your own values. A person can lose years of peace by living for approval. They can wake up each day and quietly ask the world for permission to feel worthy. They wait for praise before they trust themselves. They change their voice to match the room. They hide honest opinions to avoid judgment. They say yes when they mean no. They laugh at things they do not find funny. They shape their life around the reactions of people who may never understand them. This kind of living may look smooth on the outside, but inside it creates constant tension. The Stoic path teaches something stronger. Detach from approval and trust your own values. This does not mean you become careless or rude. It does not mean you reject all feedback. It means you stop making public opinion the ruler of your life. It means you stop confusing attention with truth. It means you stop measuring your worth by how loudly others clap. When approval becomes the main goal, a person can no longer live freely. Every choice becomes filtered through fear. Fear of being disliked, fear of being left out, fear of seeming strange, fear of not being enough. Approval feels good for a moment. That is why it can be so dangerous. A compliment can lift the mood. A kind word can warm the heart. But if your peace depends on constant agreement from others, you will always be vulnerable. One negative comment can ruin your day. One silent response can make you doubt yourself. One person's disapproval can feel like a collapse. A mind built this way is fragile because it belongs to everyone except the person living in it. A stronger life begins when you decide that your values matter more than your image. Values are the principles you stand on when no one is clapping. They guide your choices when there is no reward in sight. They help you stay honest when lying would be easier. They help you stay disciplined when no one is watching. They help you remain kind without becoming weak. They give your life shape from the inside out. You do not need to impress everyone. In fact, trying to do so is one of the fastest ways to lose yourself. People have different standards, different moods, and different expectations. If you try to satisfy all of them, you will become exhausted and confused. One person wants you louder, Another wants you quieter. One wants you to take risks. Another wants you to stay safe. One approves of your path. Another mocks it. If you keep changing yourself to fit every opinion, you will never know who you really are. That is why self-trust matters. Self-trust is not arrogance. It is not pretending you know everything. It is the quiet confidence that comes from living by principles you respect. It grows when your actions match your standards. When you tell the truth even when it is uncomfortable, self-trust grows. When you keep a promise to yourself, self-trust grows. When you choose the harder right over the easier wrong, self-trust grows. Over time, you stop needing so much outside validation because your own conscience becomes enough. One practical way to build this strength is to define what matters to you, not what sounds impressive, not what looks good on social media. What matters to you: honesty, responsibility, patience, loyalty, courage, respect, focus, simplicity. Write them down if needed. Keep them clear in your mind. Then, ask before each important choice whether that choice fits your values. This question cuts through confusion. It helps you move from mood-based living to principle-based living. There will always be pressure to perform for people who do not carry your burdens. Some will want you to be what makes them comfortable. Some will want you to follow a path they never had the courage to take. Some will judge what they do not understand. That does not mean you need to fight everyone. It means you need to remain anchored. A tree does not argue with the wind. It holds its ground. In the same way, a person with clear values does not need to explain every decision to every critic. There is freedom in that. When you stop chasing approval, you become more honest with yourself. You no longer need to decorate every weakness or hide every mistake. You can admit when you are wrong without feeling destroyed. You can receive correction without feeling humiliated. You can grow without performing growth for other people. This is real maturity. It makes learning easier because the ego is no longer fighting every lesson. Another benefit is that your relationships become more real. When you are not trying to be liked at all costs, you can speak more truthfully. You can connect without pretending. You can listen without trying to impress. You can disagree without panic. The people who stay close to that version of you are usually the people worth keeping close. They are not there for the mask. They are there for the person beneath it. It also becomes easier to say no. That small word can protect your peace more than many people realize. If you are always chasing approval, saying no feels dangerous. It feels like rejection. It feels like you are risking a connection. But many people lose respect for themselves because they cannot set limits. They agree to things that drain them. They overcommit. They become available to everyone and loyal to nobody, including themselves. A clear no is not cruelty, it is honesty. You can practice this by noticing when you say yes too quickly. Pause before agreeing. Ask whether the request fits your values, your time, and your energy. If it does not, be respectful and direct. You do not need a speech. You do not need a dramatic reason. Calm honesty is enough. Each time you protect your time and choices, your self-respect deepens. This law also asks you to stop comparing your life to people who are not living your life. Comparison feeds approval seeking. It makes you doubt your own path because someone else appears ahead, happier, stronger, or more admired. But the surface rarely tells the full truth. People show highlights, not full days. They show successes, not private struggles. They show wins, not the cost behind them. If you keep measuring your worth through comparison, you will keep handing your peace to strangers. Trusting your values means accepting that your path may look different from others. That can be uncomfortable. It may even feel lonely at times. But loneliness is not always a sign that you are wrong. Sometimes it is a sign that you are no longer pretending. A person who chooses values over approval may not always be popular. But they become dependable, they become easier to trust, and most importantly, they become whole. A simple daily practice can help. At the end of the day, ask yourself whether your choices reflected your values or your desire to be accepted. Be honest. Did you speak truthfully? Did you stay firm when you needed to? Did you change your opinion just to fit in? Did you ignore your inner voice for social comfort? These questions are not meant to shame you. They are meant to sharpen you. They help you notice where approval still has too much power. Over time, the need for validation loses its grip, not because you stop caring about people, but because you stop giving them authority over your identity. You begin to care more about being real than being praised. You care more about being steady than being celebrated. You care more about living with integrity than living for applause. That shift is quiet, but it is life-changing. A person who trusts their own values carries a different kind of energy. They are not easily pulled apart by opinion. They do not fold every time they are misunderstood. They do not beg to be seen. They know who they are becoming, and that gives them strength. This is one of the deepest forms of freedom a human being can have. So build a life that does not depend on applause. Build a life that can stand when no one approves. Build a life guided by principles you respect even in silence. The world may change its opinion tomorrow. Your values should not. When you live from that place, you become harder to shake and easier to trust. That is how inner strength grows. That is how a mind becomes unbreakable. Chapter 5. Face discomfort early to build lasting inner strength. Comfort is easy to protect and hard to grow from. Many people build their lives around avoiding anything that feels unpleasant. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until the fear is gone. They wait until the task becomes easier. They wait for the perfect mood, the perfect time, and the perfect level of confidence. But those conditions rarely arrive when you need them. If you keep waiting for comfort before you act, your strength will remain small. The Stoic mind learns a harder lesson. Face discomfort early to build lasting inner strength. This is not about harming yourself or forcing misery into your life. It is about choosing the kind of challenge that makes you more capable. It is about meeting discomfort before it becomes a source of fear. It is about training your mind to stay steady when life feels inconvenient, awkward, uncertain, or tiring. The person who can handle discomfort early becomes less fragile later. The person who avoids every hard thing often becomes weaker than they realize. Discomfort appears in many forms. It can be the first honest conversation you have been avoiding. It can be the task you keep postponing because it demands focus. It can be the workout you do not feel like starting. It can be waking up early when your body wants more sleep. It can be studying when your mind wants distraction. It can be making a decision without knowing how it will turn out. It can be speaking up when silence would be easier. These moments do not always feel dramatic, but they shape your character in quiet and lasting ways. A strong life is rarely built by accident. It is built by repeated contact with difficulty. Every time you choose the harder, responsible action over the easier, lazy one, your mind learns that discomfort is not danger. It learns that discomfort is just a signal that growth is happening. That lesson changes everything. Once you stop treating discomfort like a warning to retreat, you begin to move with more courage. Many people believe confidence must come first. In reality, confidence is often the result of action through discomfort. You speak even while your voice shakes. You begin even while you feel unready. You stay in the task even while resistance grows. Then you survive the moment. Then you realize you can handle more than you thought. That is how confidence takes root, not through endless preparation. Through direct experience, there is a great difference between pain and growth. Some discomfort is harmful and should be avoided, but much of what people fear is simply unfamiliar effort. The discomfort of learning a new skill, the discomfort of being corrected, the discomfort of saying no, the discomfort of being seen before you feel fully polished, the discomfort of trying again after a setback. These are not threats. They are training. If you want a more resilient mind, begin by doing one hard thing on purpose each day. Not something reckless, something meaningful. Make the difficult phone call. Finish the task you keep delaying. Read the challenging chapter. Clean the space you have neglected. Start the project instead of imagining it. Tell the truth instead of softening it beyond recognition. Small acts of chosen discomfort build the kind of strength that does not disappear when life gets serious. A lot of fear comes from imagination, not reality. A person may dread a conversation for days and then discover it is less painful than expected. Another may avoid a task for weeks and then finish it in one steady hour. Another may fear being embarrassed and later realize the moment passed quickly. The mind often makes discomfort look larger than it is. When you face it early, you gather proof that your fear was exaggerated. That proof reduces future hesitation. This is why delay is dangerous. The longer you avoid a hard thing, the heavier it feels. The mind starts adding stories. It becomes more emotional and less accurate. A task that could have been handled with one brave step becomes a burden because it has grown in your imagination. Facing discomfort early keeps small problems small. It keeps your life cleaner and your mind less crowded. There is also a hidden benefit to early discomfort. It builds trust in yourself. Each time you move toward the difficult thing instead of away from it, you prove that you are not ruled by convenience. You prove that your decisions are not controlled by the latest feeling. You prove that you can stay loyal to what matters even when it is not pleasant. That kind of self-trust is strong because it is earned. A person who avoids discomfort often becomes dependent on ease. They need the right mood to work. They need praise to stay motivated. They need things to unfold smoothly, or they lose focus. But a person trained through discomfort can function in imperfect conditions. They do not need comfort to begin. They can think clearly while tired. They can stay patient while under pressure. They can keep moving while uncertain. That is a major advantage in life. If you want to practice this law in a real way, start noticing the first moment of resistance. That moment matters. It might appear as dread, delay, hesitation, or a sudden urge to do something easier. Do not obey that feeling automatically. Pause and ask what kind of person you are becoming if you choose comfort again. Then ask what kind of person you become if you face the task now. That question can reveal whether the choice is helping your future or weakening it. It also helps to lower the drama around hard things. Not every challenge needs a big speech. Not every difficult task needs to feel inspiring. Sometimes strength looks quiet. It looks like sitting down and beginning. It looks like staying present. It looks like doing the work without waiting for excitement. The less you inflate discomfort in your mind, the easier it becomes to meet it directly. A powerful habit is to end the day by identifying one moment when you could have avoided discomfort but did not. Maybe you spoke honestly. Maybe you kept working when you wanted to quit. Maybe you handled a problem without escaping into distraction. Recognizing these moments matters because it teaches your mind that courage is already present in your life. It is not something you wait for. It is something you practice. Another useful step is to make discomfort part of your routine instead of treating it like an emergency. Schedule the difficult work. Keep the hard appointment. Plan the effort before motivation fades. When challenge becomes normal, it loses some of its power to scare you. You stop building a life around avoidance and start building one around strength. People often say they want better results, but they are not willing to sit inside the discomfort that results require. They want better health without the inconvenience of changing habits. They want better skill without the discomfort of being a beginner. They want a better future without the discomfort of discipline, but every meaningful improvement asks something from you. It asks for patience, effort, and willingness to remain uncomfortable long enough to grow. This is not a cold idea. It is deeply human. Every strong person you respect has learned to move through discomfort instead of worshipping comfort. They have made choices they did not feel like making. They have stayed in the process after the excitement faded. They have faced moments of doubt and kept going anyway. That is what gives their strength weight. You can do the same. Start smaller if needed. Start with 10 minutes of focused effort. Start with one honest sentence. Start with one early morning. Start with one tough decision. Start with one finished task. The point is not to become fearless overnight. The point is to stop letting discomfort decide your limits. When you face discomfort early, life becomes less intimidating. You stop building a personality around avoidance. You stop mistaking ease for safety. You start respecting your own capacity to handle hard things. That respect changes how you carry yourself. It makes you more focused, more dependable, more prepared, more stable. A lasting inner strength does not come from an easy life. It comes from repeated practice in difficult moments. It comes from choosing effort before excuses. It comes from meeting discomfort while it is still small enough to manage. If you do that often enough, your mind will stop seeing challenge a threat and start seeing it as training. That is how resilience grows. That is how courage becomes natural. That is how a person becomes harder to break. Chapter 6. Replace excuses with actions that match your goals. Many people say they want change, but their daily actions tell a different story. They talk about discipline while protecting unhealthy habits. They talk about success while wasting hours every day. They talk about growth while avoiding responsibility. They talk about becoming stronger while continuing the same patterns that keep them weak. This gap between words and actions quietly destroys confidence because deep inside every person knows when they are not living honestly. The Stoic path demands something more direct. Replace excuses with actions that match your goals. Excuses are dangerous because they often sound reasonable. That is why people keep them close. An excuse can protect pride for a moment. It can reduce guilt temporarily. It can make delay feel acceptable. But over time, excuses become chains. They stop progress without making noise. A person can spend years explaining why they are stuck instead of changing the behavior that keeps them there. A goal without matching action is only a comforting thought. Many people wait for motivation before they begin. They believe action should feel natural and exciting every day. But real discipline does not depend on excitement. It depends on commitment. Some days you will feel focused, some days you will feel distracted. Some days you will feel strong, some days you will feel mentally heavy. The person who grows is not the person who always feels ready. It is the person who continues even when readiness is absent. Excuses often hide inside simple phrases. I will start tomorrow. I need the perfect plan first. I am too tired today. I work better under pressure. Things will calm down later. These thoughts feel harmless, but repeated often enough, they shape an entire life. A person who constantly delays action slowly teaches their mind that comfort matters more than purpose. Eventually, the delay becomes automatic. The first step toward change is brutal honesty. Stop asking what you intend to do someday. Ask what your current habits are creating right now. Your routines reveal your direction more clearly than your wishes ever will. If your actions do not support your goals, the problem is not lack of potential. The problem is lack of alignment. This truth can feel uncomfortable, but it is also freeing. Once you stop hiding behind excuses, you regain power. You stop acting like life is happening only to you and begin acting like your choices matter again. That shift changes the energy of your entire life. A strong mind takes responsibility quickly, not because it enjoys blame, but because responsibility creates movement. An excuse keeps you trapped in explanation. Responsibility pushes you toward action. One keeps the problem alive. The other begins solving it. Imagine a person who says they want peace, but constantly feeds anger through arguments, negativity, and endless distraction. Their actions are fighting their goal. Imagine another person who says they want financial stability, but avoids planning, overspends, and ignores difficult decisions. Again, the actions and goals are disconnected. Many people suffer not because their goals are impossible, but because their behavior does not support what they claim to want. This is why self-observation matters. Pay attention to where your time goes. Pay attention to what repeatedly interrupts your discipline. Pay attention to the moments when you instantly search for reasons instead of solutions. These moments reveal the areas where excuses still control your life. One powerful habit is to stop defending weak behavior. If you avoided the work, admit it plainly. If you wasted time, admit it without drama. If fear stopped you from trying, face that truth directly. Honest language changes the mind. Instead of saying, "I could not do it," ask whether you truly could not or whether you chose comfort. Most growth begins when excuses lose their protection. There is also a major difference between a reason and an excuse. Real life contains real challenges. People experience stress, exhaustion, setbacks, loss, pressure, and uncertainty. Stoic thinking does not ignore these realities, but it asks an important question. Even within difficulty, what action is still possible? Maybe progress becomes slower, maybe the task becomes harder. But there is almost always something meaningful you can still do. A disciplined person focuses on that next possible action. If your health matters, begin with one consistent habit instead of endless promises. Walk daily. Sleep properly. Drink more water. Move your body even when the mood is low. If your focus matters, reduce the distractions that steal your attention. If your future matters, spend time building skills instead of only consuming entertainment. Real growth usually begins in small repeated actions, not dramatic moments. People often underestimate how deeply small actions shape identity. Each action sends a message to your mind. When you keep promises to yourself, your self-respect strengthens. When you repeatedly ignore your responsibilities, trust in yourself weakens. Confidence is not built by positive thinking alone. It is built when your behavior proves that your words mean something. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. A person who works steadily every day will often surpass the person who depends on rare bursts of motivation. Discipline is less about dramatic effort and more about reliable behavior. Quiet, repeated action creates long-term transformation. Another dangerous excuse is waiting for perfect conditions. Some people delay their goals because they want certainty before they begin. They want the perfect schedule, the perfect timing, the perfect mental state. But life rarely becomes perfectly arranged. If you wait for ideal conditions, you may wait forever. Strong people learn to act within imperfect circumstances. They adapt instead of postponing. There is also wisdom in simplifying your goals. Sometimes people stay stuck because they make everything too complicated. They create huge plans but avoid basic action. Simplicity creates momentum. If the room is messy, clean one part. If the task feels overwhelming, work for 20 focused minutes. If the relationship needs repair, begin with one honest conversation. Simplicity removes the excuse that the problem is too large to face. A powerful question to ask yourself daily is this: does my behavior today match the future I claim to want? That question cuts through fantasy. It forces alignment between vision and action. Over time, the answers become very clear. Either your habits are building your future or slowly damaging it. Another important lesson is learning to act before you feel emotionally prepared. Feelings change constantly. If your actions depend completely on emotion, your progress will always be unstable. Some mornings you will feel inspired. Other mornings you will feel resistance immediately. Discipline means understanding that your responsibilities still matter even when your feelings shift. This applies to every part of life. A person who values honesty tells the truth even when it is uncomfortable. A person who values growth studies even when distracted. A person who values peace controls destructive impulses even when angry. Values become real only when supported by action. There will be moments when you fail. Days when you fall back into old patterns. Days when excuses return. Do not waste time pretending those moments do not exist. Face them quickly, learn from them, then return to action immediately. The danger is not making a mistake. The danger is building an identity around the mistake and giving up entirely. A mentally strong person does not spend all day complaining about how difficult the path is. They understand that difficulty is part of the process. They focus their energy on movement instead of endless emotional resistance. They know that progress often feels ordinary while it is happening. Most important changes happen quietly through repeated effort. Your future is shaped less by what you say and more by what you repeatedly do. A person may speak beautifully about discipline and still remain stuck for years. Another person may speak very little but steadily improve their habits, focus, health, and character. Over time, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. That is why action matters so deeply. Action removes confusion. Action builds evidence. Action creates momentum. Action teaches the mind that change is possible. Even small action breaks the feeling of helplessness because movement creates belief. There is something deeply powerful about becoming a person who no longer hides behind excuses. You become more dependable, more honest, more focused, more grounded. You stop negotiating with every uncomfortable feeling. You stop searching for endless reasons to delay your own growth. You begin living with greater clarity because your actions and goals are finally moving in the same direction. This does not require perfection, it requires willingness. Willingness to begin before confidence arrives. Willingness to continue when comfort disappears. Willingness to take responsibility instead of protecting ego. These qualities create inner strength because they train you to trust action more than excuses. Every day presents a choice. You can protect old patterns with clever explanations, or you can move toward the life you claim to want. One path keeps you comfortable for a moment. The other slowly transforms your character. A strong future is built when your daily actions stop betraying your deeper goals. That is how discipline becomes real. That is how respect for yourself grows. That is how a person becomes mentally unbreakable through consistent, honest action. Chapter 7. End negative habits before they weaken your character. Character rarely breaks all at once. It weakens slowly. It weakens through repeated choices that seem harmless in the moment. A little dishonesty to avoid discomfort. A little delay because effort feels inconvenient. A little bitterness left unexamined. A little avoidance repeated so often that it becomes a lifestyle. Most people do not wake up one day and suddenly become the person they never wanted to be. The change happens quietly through habits they tolerated for too long. This is why the Stoic mind treats habits seriously. End negative habits before they weaken your character. Habits are powerful because they stop feeling like choices. At first, a behavior demands attention. Later, it becomes automatic. What you repeat often enough begins to shape your identity. A person who repeatedly chooses discipline starts seeing themselves as disciplined. A person who repeatedly escapes responsibility begins seeing avoidance as normal. The mind adjusts to patterns. That is why habits deserve more respect than temporary motivation. Many people focus only on visible goals while ignoring the behaviors beneath them. They want peace but feed resentment. They want focus but protect distraction. They want strength but continue habits that reduce self-respect. They want a better future while repeating routines that quietly move them in the opposite direction. This creates inner conflict because part of the mind wants growth while another part keeps supporting decline. The first difficult truth is this: negative habits often provide immediate comfort. That is what makes them dangerous. They soothe boredom. They reduce tension for a short time. They distract from difficult emotions. They create relief without solving the deeper problem. The relief feels useful, but the cost appears later. Avoiding important work may reduce stress for 1 hour and increase it for 1 month. Constant complaining may create temporary emotional release and slowly train the mind to search for problems everywhere. Harsh self-talk may seem like accountability while quietly damaging confidence. Over time, repeated patterns create consequences that become harder to ignore. One of the strongest forms of discipline is learning to notice harmful habits before they fully settle into your identity. This requires attention because habits often hide behind ordinary routines. They become invisible precisely because they are familiar. Start observing yourself without excuses. What behaviors appear most often when you are tired? What do you do when uncomfortable feelings arrive? How do you respond when disappointed? What patterns appear when no one is watching? These moments reveal more about character than public success ever will. A person may say they value honesty while constantly exaggerating. Another may claim to value growth while spending every evening avoiding meaningful effort. The gap between values and habits deserves careful examination. Character becomes stronger when actions begin matching principles. Many people try to break habits through force alone. They rely on intense motivation for a few days and then become frustrated when old patterns return. Real change usually requires deeper understanding. Ask what purpose the habit serves. Does it reduce stress? Does it create distraction? Does it protect you from failure? Does it help avoid difficult emotions? Once you understand the function, replacing the habit becomes easier. A habit survives because it provides something. Remove the behavior without addressing the need beneath it, and the mind often searches for a substitute. That is why replacement matters more than removal. Replace endless distraction with deliberate rest. Replace constant complaint with problem solving. Replace impulsive reactions with brief pauses. Replace avoidance with small completed actions. Character strengthens when healthier patterns become repeated enough to feel natural. There is also danger in believing that small habits do not matter. They matter because they create momentum. A person who regularly ignores minor responsibilities slowly trains themselves to tolerate larger failures. A person who repeatedly breaks promises to themselves weakens internal trust. Over time, they stop believing their own intentions. This loss of self-trust is serious because confidence depends heavily on evidence. When your mind sees repeated proof that you follow through, confidence grows quietly. When your mind sees repeated proof that you abandon commitments, doubt increases. This process often happens beneath awareness. If you want stronger character, begin treating promises to yourself with greater respect. Not dramatic promises, simple ones. Wake at the planned time. Complete the task before entertainment. Keep the boundary you decided on. Finish what deserves completion. These moments appear ordinary but shape identity. One reason people stay trapped in negative habits is because they underestimate future consequences. The damage feels distant, the cost seems manageable, but habits accumulate. Small repeated choices become long-term realities. Years later, a person wonders why their discipline feels weak or why peace feels difficult to maintain. Often the answer is hidden inside daily patterns accepted without question. This is not meant to create fear. It is meant to create awareness. Awareness gives you options. Another useful practice is removing unnecessary temptation. Many people rely entirely on willpower while surrounding themselves with distractions. Environment influences behavior more than pride likes to admit. If something repeatedly weakens your focus, create distance from it. If certain routines increase harmful patterns, redesign them. Wisdom includes making better choices easier. That does not mean becoming rigid or obsessed. It means understanding your weaknesses well enough to protect your strengths. There will also be moments when old habits return unexpectedly. Stress can reopen familiar patterns. Exhaustion can lower resistance. Difficult seasons can tempt you toward easier escapes. When this happens, avoid turning one setback into surrender. Notice the slip. Understand it. Correct course quickly. A single mistake does not define character. Persistent refusal to learn from mistakes creates larger problems. Strong people are not those who never struggle with bad habits. Strong people are those who remain willing to confront themselves honestly. This honesty requires courage because facing negative patterns can challenge identity. A person may realize they have built comfort around excuses. Another may discover they have normalized resentment. Another may see years of avoidance. These discoveries can feel uncomfortable, but discomfort during self-examination often signals growth. A mature mind understands that protecting ego is less important than protecting character. One powerful daily question can help. Ask yourself which habit moved you closer to the person you want to become. And which habit moved you away? Answer without judgment. Answer with accuracy. Repeated reflection creates clarity. Clarity makes correction possible. There is something else worth remembering. Character is not only built during major decisions. It is built during ordinary moments when no audience exists. The way you handle boredom. The way you respond to frustration. The way you use free time. The way you speak to yourself internally. These details accumulate. Many people spend years improving external appearances while neglecting internal habits. They want admiration without integrity. They want achievement without discipline. But a stable life requires deeper foundations. Character matters because it remains when conditions change. If your habits support honesty, patience, responsibility, focus, and courage, difficult seasons become easier to endure. If your habits support avoidance, impulsiveness, and denial, pressure exposes those weaknesses quickly. This is why ending negative habits early is an act of protection. You are protecting future peace, protecting self-respect, protecting relationships, protecting your ability to handle hardship without collapse. The goal is not perfection. Perfection creates pressure and often leads to discouragement. The goal is direction. Steady movement toward better habits. Steady correction when old patterns appear. Steady willingness to become someone more disciplined than yesterday. Over months and years, these choices create visible differences. A person becomes calmer because they no longer feed destructive impulses. A person becomes more dependable because consistency replaced avoidance. A person becomes mentally stronger because they stopped rewarding weakness with excuses. Eventually, something important changes. Discipline stops feeling forced. Healthy choices stop feeling unusual. The person you wanted to become begins appearing in everyday behavior. Not through sudden transformation, through repeated correction. That is how lasting character forms. Quietly, through habits strengthened or removed long before anyone notices. The strongest people often carry an invisible advantage. They ended harmful patterns before those patterns became permanent homes. They faced themselves honestly. They made uncomfortable adjustments. They chose long-term strength over short-term relief. You have the same choice available each day. A habit repeated often enough writes part of your future. Choose carefully what you allow to remain. Because every tolerated weakness asks for more space, while every corrected habit makes your character harder to break. Chapter 8. Practice patience and choose progress over quick relief. Patience is one of the hardest strengths to build because it does not always give an immediate reward. Quick relief feels easier. It gives fast comfort. It lowers pressure for a moment. It helps people escape what they do not want to face. That is why so many choose it. But the same choice that brings short relief often slows real progress. A person can calm discomfort today and create deeper frustration tomorrow. That trade is common, and it quietly shapes many lives. The Stoic mind chooses differently. Practice patience and choose progress over quick relief. This choice does not mean you enjoy waiting. It does not mean you welcome difficulty. It does not mean you never feel tired, annoyed, or restless. It means you understand that the easiest response is often not the best one. Progress usually asks for steady effort. Relief often asks for escape. One builds strength, the other can weaken it when used too often. A person who seeks quick relief every time pressure appears starts training the mind to avoid discomfort. They reach for distraction when bored. They reach for comfort when stressed. They quit early when work feels heavy. They interrupt important tasks to feel better right away. Over time, this habit reduces endurance. The mind learns that every hard feeling must be removed immediately. That is not strength. That is dependence on comfort. Patience changes that pattern. Patience is not passive waiting. It is active restraint. It is the ability to remain present while results take time. It is the decision to continue when progress is slow. It is the discipline of not demanding instant change from every effort. A patient person understands that worthwhile things grow in stages. Trust, skill, health, discipline, and peace all develop through repeated action. None of them mature well under constant impatience. One of the first places to practice patience is in your expectations. Many people suffer because they expect growth to feel faster than it does. They start a new habit and want immediate transformation. They make one good decision and want their whole life to change by the weekend. When reality moves more slowly, they become discouraged. That discouragement often pushes them back toward quick relief. Patience protects you from that cycle by teaching you to respect the natural pace of growth. A strong mind knows that slow progress is still progress. A small improvement repeated over time can change a life. A few focused minutes each day may not feel dramatic, but they create real momentum. A single thoughtful response in a tense situation may not seem powerful, but it strengthens your character. A calm decision made under pressure may not get applause, but it keeps your future clear. Patience helps you value what is building even before it becomes visible. Quick relief often hides inside habits that feel harmless. Extra screen time, avoiding a hard conversation, delaying a task until pressure becomes unbearable, eating or spending or distracting yourself to avoid feeling uncomfortable. These actions may soften a difficult moment, but they rarely solve the deeper issue. The relief passes, the problem remains. In some cases it grows. Progress asks more from you. It asks you to stay with the work. It asks you to tolerate the discomfort of not finishing everything at once. It asks you to believe that effort matters even before results appear. That is why many people avoid it. Progress has a slower emotional reward, but it creates deeper stability. One practical way to build patience is to stop measuring every day by how comfortable it felt. Measure it by whether you moved forward. Did you stay with the task? Did you keep your promise? Did you remain steady when you wanted to rush? Did you keep your attention on what matters? These questions train your mind to respect process instead of demanding constant comfort. There is a quiet confidence that comes from choosing progress over relief. You begin to trust yourself not to panic under pressure. You do not need every issue to disappear before you can keep going. You do not need perfect feelings before you act. You learn to carry discomfort without treating it as a command. That makes you far more stable in real life, because real life is full of unfinished situations. Patience also improves judgment. When you rush to feel better, you often make poor decisions. You say things you do not mean. You quit too early. You spend without thinking. You promise too quickly. You react based on tension instead of truth. Patience creates space between impulse and action. That space gives wisdom room to work. It allows you to ask whether a choice supports your future or only helps your mood for a few minutes. This matters in relationships too. A patient person does not force every conversation to end immediately. They do not expect instant understanding from every person. They do not demand that progress in trust happen on their schedule. They stay consistent. They listen more carefully. They give room for growth. That kind of patience protects connections from unnecessary damage. There is also a deep link between patience and self-respect. When you choose quick relief over and over, you teach yourself that discomfort is more important than your standards. When you choose progress, you show yourself that your standards matter more than temporary ease. That difference changes the way you see yourself. You stop feeling like a person who is pulled around by every mood. You start becoming someone who can stay committed. A useful practice is to notice the exact moment when impatience starts speaking. It may sound like, "This is taking too long. I deserve a break first. I cannot handle this feeling." Sometimes those words are honest. Often, they are just the mind asking for escape. When you hear them, pause and ask whether the next move will bring real progress or just a little relief. That question can save you from many unnecessary detours. Another helpful habit is to break large goals into smaller steps and then stay with them patiently. A person trying to improve their life can easily become overwhelmed by the full distance ahead. But the mind handles small steps better than huge demands. 1 page, 1 call, 1 workout, 1 hour of focused work, 1 hard choice, 1 day at a time. Progress becomes easier to trust when it is reduced to something you can actually do now. Patience also means accepting that some results cannot be rushed at all. Healing takes time. Learning takes time. Trust takes time. Character takes time. A strong person does not insult the process by demanding shortcuts where none exist. They respect the work required. They remain faithful to the path even when the end is not visible yet. This is especially important in hard seasons. When life feels slow or heavy, many people become tempted by any quick source of relief. But the relief may only delay a larger recovery. A patient person is willing to feel the weight of the moment without surrendering to it. They understand that discomfort can be temporary, while growth can be lasting. A good question to ask yourself every day is this: am I choosing what helps me feel better now, or what helps me become better later? That one question can bring incredible clarity. It does not shame you. It simply points your mind toward the future. It helps you see whether your actions are feeding weakness or building strength. The reward for patience is not always dramatic, but it is real. You become less reactive. You become more stable. You begin to trust the slow work of change. You stop demanding that life be comfortable before you move. You learn to stay with your responsibility even when relief is available. That is a mark of maturity. A patient person is harder to shake because they are not ruled by immediate feeling. They can wait without collapsing. They can work without constant reward. They can keep moving while results are still forming. That kind of strength does not come from a single decision. It comes from repeated choices made in ordinary moments. Choose progress when the temptation is to escape. Choose steadiness when the urge is to rush. Choose the harder path when the easy one only offers temporary comfort. That is how patience becomes more than an idea. It becomes a way of living. And a life built this way grows stronger, clearer, and more resilient with every passing day. Chapter 9. Protect your peace by setting firm, clear boundaries. Peace is not something that survives by accident. It is something that must be guarded with intention. Many people lose their peace not because life is always harsh, but because they allow too many interruptions, demands, and emotional pressures into their space. They say yes when they want to say no. They accept conversations they do not want to have. They tolerate behavior that slowly drains them. They respond to every request, every opinion, every expectation, until they no longer recognize their own limits. A strong mind learns a different approach. Protect your peace by setting firm, clear boundaries. Boundaries are not walls meant to isolate you from life. They are lines that define what you allow into your time, energy, and attention. Without those lines, everything and everyone begins to influence your inner state. With them, you choose what deserves access to you. That choice is where peace begins. A lack of boundaries often looks like kindness on the surface. A person may think they are being helpful by always being available. They may believe they are avoiding conflict by never saying no. They may feel that constant agreement keeps relationships smooth, but over time, this pattern creates exhaustion. A life without boundaries becomes a life where your energy is constantly spent on others while little remains for yourself. The Stoic mind understands that respect for others includes respect for self. You cannot maintain peace if your time is constantly taken without care. You cannot remain focused if your attention is always scattered by outside demands. You cannot build strength if your energy is always drained by things that do not align with your values. Setting boundaries begins with awareness. You must first notice where your peace is being interrupted. It may be constant messages that pull you away from focus. It may be people who expect immediate responses regardless of your situation. It may be tasks you accept out of guilt rather than intention. It may be conversations that leave you mentally exhausted. These patterns often feel normal until you step back and examine them honestly. Once you see them clearly, the next step is decision. What deserves access to your time? what does not, what aligns with your priorities, what drains them. Boundaries are not about rejecting people entirely. They're about choosing how, when, and to what degree you engage. That structure is essential for mental clarity. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear disappointing others. They worry that saying no will create conflict. They fear being misunderstood or judged. This fear often leads them to overextend themselves. But constant approval from others usually comes at the cost of internal stability. A life built on avoiding disappointment rarely leads to peace. A firm boundary is not an act of aggression. It is an act of honesty. It communicates limits without hostility. It says that your time has value, your focus has value, your energy has value. When you respect these things, others begin to understand that your availability is not unlimited. One of the most powerful habits is learning to pause before agreeing to anything. Many people say yes automatically out of habit or pressure. That automatic yes slowed with a life filled with obligations they never truly chose. By pausing, even briefly, you give yourself space to decide whether the request fits your priorities or disrupts them. That small moment of reflection can change the direction of your entire day. Another important boundary is emotional. Not every opinion deserves your emotional energy. Not every conflict requires your involvement. Not every problem belongs to you. A strong mind learns to distinguish between what requires action and what requires distance. Without that distinction, emotional exhaustion becomes constant. There is also a boundary between your attention and distraction. In a world filled with constant input, protecting focus becomes a discipline. Every notification, interruption, and unnecessary engagement pulls your mind away from what matters. If you allow every distraction in, your mind never stays still long enough to build anything meaningful. Guarding attention is one of the most practical forms of self-respect. Boundaries also apply to internal dialogue. The way you speak to yourself matters. If your inner voice is constantly harsh, critical, or dismissive, it weakens your confidence over time. Protecting your peace includes refusing to accept destructive internal patterns. You can correct yourself without attacking yourself. You can learn without self-punishment. A key sign of weak boundaries is resentment. When a person consistently says yes while meaning no, resentment builds quietly. They may not express it directly, but it shows in their mood, energy, and relationships. Resentment is often a signal that boundaries have been ignored for too long. The solution is not anger, but adjustment. Realignment with what is sustainable. When you begin setting boundaries, discomfort is normal. People may react differently than before. Some may resist your limits, some may test them, some may not understand them immediately. That does not mean the boundary is wrong. It often means the previous lack of boundary benefited others more than it benefited you. Growth in this area requires consistency even when it feels unfamiliar. A strong boundary does not need constant explanation. Over-explaining often weakens it. Clear communication is enough. Simple statements about availability, limits, or priorities are more effective than long justifications. The more you justify every boundary, the more room you create for negotiation that should not exist. Protecting your peace also requires understanding that your energy is not equal every day. Some days you can give more. Some days you need rest. A boundary respects this variation. It allows you to adjust without guilt. It prevents overcommitment during high-energy moments that lead to burnout later. There is also wisdom in choosing environments carefully. The people you spend time with and spaces you enter influence your mental state. If certain environments consistently leave you drained or distracted, it is reasonable to limit exposure. Protecting peace is not only about individual interactions, but also about overall surroundings. A powerful practice is to regularly ask, what is currently crossing your limits? Where am I overextending? Where am I tolerating too much? Where am I saying yes without alignment? This reflection helps you adjust before imbalance becomes exhaustion. Boundaries also strengthen relationships when applied correctly. Healthy relationships do not require self-neglect. In fact, clear boundaries often create more respect. When people know your limits, they understand how to interact with you more clearly. Confusion decreases, frustration decreases, stability increases. A person without boundaries often feels overwhelmed and unnoticed at the same time. They give too much but feel unseen because their giving is not guided by choice. A person with boundaries gives intentionally. They show up where they choose, not where they are pressured. That difference creates a stronger sense of identity. Over time, consistent boundaries reshape how you experience life. You stop feeling pulled in every direction. You stop reacting to every demand. You begin to operate from intention rather than pressure. Your mind becomes clearer because it is no longer constantly overloaded. The goal is not to become distant from others. The goal is to remain present without losing yourself. You can care for people without sacrificing your stability. You can be helpful without being depleted. You can be kind without being available to everything. Peace grows when your energy is protected with clarity. When your time is respected through intention. When your attention is directed rather than scattered. When your emotional space is guarded from unnecessary disruption. These are not rigid rules. They are practices that support a balanced life. Every time you set a boundary, you reinforce a simple truth. Your life is yours to manage. Your peace is yours to protect. Your energy is yours to guide. The more consistently you honor this truth, the stronger your inner foundation becomes. A mind without boundaries is easily disturbed. A mind with boundaries is steady even in a noisy world. That steadiness is what allows real strength to grow. Chapter 10. Repeat these laws daily until your mind strengthens. Most people do not change because they understand ideas. They change because they repeat actions long enough for those ideas to become part of who they are. A strong mind is not built in a single moment of inspiration. It is built through repetition, through practice, through returning to the same principles even when progress feels slow or invisible. This is why the final Stoic law brings everything together. Repeat these laws daily until your mind strengthens. Knowledge alone is not enough. A person can read powerful ideas and still live the same way. They can agree with wisdom and still act against it. They can feel motivated for a short time and then return to old patterns. Without repetition, even the clearest truth loses power. The mind does not transform through understanding alone. It transforms through consistent living. Repetition is what turns discipline into identity. At first, every action requires effort. You must remind yourself to stay calm. You must remind yourself to control reactions. You must remind yourself to reflect honestly. You must remind yourself to stop excuses, end negative habits, face discomfort, choose progress, protect boundaries, and detach from approval. In the beginning, each principle feels separate. Each one requires attention, but over time something shifts. What once felt like effort becomes natural response. The mind begins to recognize patterns faster. The pause before reaction becomes automatic. The choice to act instead of delay becomes easier. The ability to reflect becomes part of daily rhythm. The need for approval loses strength. The discomfort of discipline becomes familiar instead of threatening. This is how repetition rebuilds the mind. A single day of discipline does not create strength. A single failure does not destroy it. What matters is the pattern you repeat more often than not. The mind is shaped by what it experiences consistently. If you repeat distraction, distraction becomes normal. If you repeat avoidance, avoidance becomes normal. If you repeat responsibility, responsibility becomes normal. Identity forms through repetition, not intention. This is why the Stoic laws are not meant to be understood once and remembered. They are meant to be lived daily. Each law is a training tool for the mind. Accepting what you cannot control teaches calm. Disciplined reactions teach control. Honest reflection teaches awareness. Detaching from approval teaches independence. Facing discomfort teaches resilience. Replacing excuses teaches responsibility. Ending negative habits teaches discipline. Practicing patience teaches endurance. Setting boundaries teaches self-respect. Repeating all of them together creates mental strength. There is a difference between knowing the path and walking it. Many people know what they should do. Fewer people do it consistently. The difference is repetition. A strong mind is not created by rare moments of effort. It is created by ordinary days where the same principles are applied again and again without needing external pressure. Daily repetition also protects you from emotional instability. Without structure, the mind follows mood. When energy is high, motivation appears. When energy drops, discipline disappears. But when principles are repeated daily, they stop depending on mood. Calm becomes practiced. Focus becomes practiced. Patience becomes practiced. Boundaries become practiced. Over time, stability replaces randomness. A powerful shift happens when discipline stops feeling like a decision and starts feeling like a default. You no longer debate whether to act correctly, you simply act. You no longer negotiate with excuses as often. You recognize them faster. You no longer rely on motivation. You rely on structure. This transformation only comes through repetition. Most people underestimate how small daily actions accumulate. One moment of control does not seem significant. One honest reflection does not feel life-changing. One boundary does not feel powerful. One avoided excuse does not feel like progress. But when these actions are repeated daily, they begin to shape the entire direction of a life. Strength is built in layers, not leaps. There will be days when you forget. Days when old habits return. Days when you act against what you know. That is not failure in the deeper sense. It is part of repetition. What matters is not perfection, but return. Returning to the principles after slipping is what strengthens the mind further. Every return reinforces awareness. Every correction builds resilience. A weak mind gives up after inconsistency. A strong mind adjusts and continues. The goal is not to never fall off track. The goal is to shorten the time spent off track. Over time, discipline becomes faster to restore. Awareness becomes quicker. Recovery becomes smoother. This is the real effect of repetition. Repetition also builds self-trust. Every time you act in alignment with your principles, even in small situations, you prove something to yourself. You prove that your decisions are not controlled by impulse alone. You prove that your values are active, not theoretical. That proof accumulates. Eventually, you begin to trust your own behavior because it becomes consistent. Without repetition, even strong intentions fade. A person may feel determined for a short period and then slowly return to old patterns. But with repetition, determination becomes structure. Structure becomes habit. Habit becomes identity. Identity becomes stability. That is how transformation actually happens. The Stoic approach is not about intense bursts of effort. It is about steady alignment. It is about showing up mentally in the same way each day, even when circumstances change. Life will always bring variation. Some days will feel easier, some will feel heavier, some will test patience, some will test focus. Repetition ensures that your principles remain steady regardless of external conditions. This is especially important when life feels overwhelming. In difficult moments, the mind often wants to abandon discipline. It wants quick relief. It wants escape. It wants shortcuts. But those moments are exactly when repetition matters most. Returning to your principles during pressure is what strengthens them in your character. It proves that discipline is not conditional. A practical way to live this law is to review your principles every day in simple form, not as a long ritual, but as a reminder. Calm in what I cannot control, control in my reactions, honesty in my reflection, independence from approval, courage in discomfort, responsibility in action, discipline in habits, patience in progress, boundaries in relationships, consistency in practice. These reminders reinforce direction. Over time, repetition changes your inner dialogue. Instead of reacting blindly, you begin to respond with awareness. Instead of being pulled by every emotion, you begin to observe it. Instead of drifting between habits, you begin to choose them. The mind becomes less scattered and more centered. This is what mental strengthening truly means. Not becoming perfect, but becoming steady. Not eliminating struggle, but handling it with clarity. Not avoiding weakness entirely, but reducing its control over your decisions. Repetition slowly shifts the balance of power inside you. Eventually, something simple but powerful happens. You stop trying to become strong and start realizing you have been building strength all along through your daily choices. The laws you repeated stop feeling like instructions and start feeling like who you are. That is the final transformation. When discipline is no longer something you practice occasionally, but something you live continuously. When Stoic principles are not reminders you struggle to follow, but patterns that guide your behavior naturally. When your mind is no longer easily shaken, because it has been trained through repetition to remain steady. A strong mind is not created in a moment. It is created in repetition, and repetition practiced daily with intention becomes the foundation of an unbreakable character.